What's up, guys? Welcome to the group. For those of you who aren't aware how to change your brake pads, I've done it a couple of times, so I thought I'd do a few instructional how-tos on how to do bits and pieces on your car, such as changing your brake pads, changing your bulbs, headlight bulbs, taillight bulbs, etc. So today we're going to change the front brake pads. Now I've already done one side, so I'm going to show you guys how to do the other side. So the first thing you want to do is get a couple of blocks of wood. Just chalk off your rear wheels. You can do both sides or one side, it's entirely up to you, but just for demonstration purposes I'm just going to do one side. Next you want to open up your bonnet and you want to take off the cap for your brake fluid. Just sit on top. I'll explain why we have to do this in the next step. And just get the bonnet sit down nicely again. Step number 3, you want to loosen your lug nuts. If you're like me and lucky enough to have one of these that came with the car, you're all good. Use this, it should fit. If not, just use a socket on a socket set. I'm not too sure what size these are, but yeah, that's your next option, so you can roll with that. Now for step 4, you want to jack it up off the ground, but make sure when you loosen your lug nuts, do not take them off just yet, just loosen them. You want to jack it up. Now for a little tip, you've got your metal sills along here. You don't want to crush these or bend them over because it'll become a wider fitness issue. So what I like to do is just get a piece of wood. As you can see, I've chopped out the centre a bit and it sits on there, so when you jack it up, it's going to lift the car up, but it's not going to bend your sills. So you can look after your sills and keep them nice and safe. Now once you've jacked it up, so it's off the ground just enough, you want to take off your lug nuts. Okay, so for step 5, after you've taken the lug nuts off and taken your wheel off, you want to get your wheel and chuck it under your car. The reason why I do this is just to add a layer of protection in case your jack fails. You don't want to be under the car and relying on just your jack, because 9 times out of 10 it'll fail on you and well, you're dead. So as an extra precaution, I like to get the tyre and just use it as a prop just in case the jack does fail. You're not going to get crushed under your car. Okay, next we need to undo this bolt here. Just be careful when you're undoing it. This inner bolt here is sitting, your rubber boot sits on your guide pin. You want to get a pair of vice grips or something and just put that over this, because what's going to happen when you turn the nut, this is going to turn with it and it's going to be a fucking nightmare to get it off. So when you do put this on, just be careful you don't damage the rubber boot when you put your vice grips on. And you get your socket, you crack it, and then it should be able to be loose enough to undo. That pops out, just like that. Now the next step, once you've taken your bolt out, it should just open up like a clamshell, just like that. My piston's not too bad looking, nor if it's just dirty I'd spray a bit of carby cleaner in there, or brake cleaner, just to get all that fucking gunk and shit out of there. But yeah, basically, opens up the clamshell, get your old pads, you just pull out. Some of them might have metal backing clips on the back of them, so when you take them out, take note of how the metal clips go back in, because you'll want to know that for when you put the new brake pads back in. And the rear, you just pop out the rear ones. I'll just put them down like that as they come out, and we go on the next step. Now with your old calipers, they'll have these little, I don't know if you can see it because the camera's not focusing, these little metal clips will go at the bottom. You want to keep these, you're not going to put them on the new pads. What you want to do now is take your metal backing plate off your old brake pads, put on a new brake pad, get your wee metal clip. Oh, God, sometimes these can be a nightmare to get back on. Anyway, I'll let you figure it out. Okay, once you've got your metal clip on, you want to get a bit of anti-seize paste that came with your brake pads. You want to smear that over the metal surface. It's basically anti-seize, so it stops the metal plate sticking to the back of the brake caliper. Once you put that on, chuck your metal clip back on. Ugh. Now, another important thing, it's very important you don't get any of the anti-seize paste on the other side of your brake caliper, because this will cause problems. It will cause friction when the brake pad meets the caliper, and it will cause you big problems. I'm not too sure what it does exactly, but I just know it's not good. So very important you don't get any anti-seize paste on the brake pad itself. Once you've done that, you get your brake pad, you slot it on the bottom first, push it forward, slide into the top, and it should fit in there nice and snug. You do the same for the other side. Okay, once you've got your brake pads in, they should be sitting like this, nice and snug and flush with your rotor, and you're good to carry on to the next step. The next step is, now, the reason why we took the cap off your brake fluid reservoir is because now we've got new brake pads in. We need to push the brake piston back in so there's enough clearance to put the clamshell back up so everything fits nice and snug. Now for that, you need a special tool. Now for this, I'm just going to use a pair of grips. You can use any tool to do the job. So you push, squeeze, you can see the pistons going back into its housing. Just like that. Now it's nice and flush with the piston. So just be careful when you do that, you don't damage your rubber seal or anything around the outside. What I recommend is getting a piece of wood, put a piece of wood on top of that, so your metal grips aren't going to be directly on this and damaging your seal or nothing. And what you want to do is do a final check, make sure everything's sitting in its where it needs to be, it's nice and snug, honky-dory. While you've got your clamshell out, this part here, this is your guide pin. Now if this isn't lubricated, what you'll find is when you take your brake caliper off, this will be a fucking nightmare to get off, because what happens is this gets rusty and it's seized. So if it is like that, just wiggle it, pry it with using a bit of CRC, should work and you'll eventually get it off. But I use some anti-seize paste I've got in there, so you can see when I slide it in and out, it flows nice and freely, so that's not going to be a problem. So what I'm going to do, just push the clamshell back up, make sure everything lines up with the hole, get your pin, tuck that back in. So normally I'd use a torque wrench for this because it needs to be torqued to a certain tension. If you've got a torque wrench, by all means use it. If you haven't, just use a pair of vice grips again, same process as earlier. Just chuck them on there to keep a nice firm grip on it. So when you tighten the tighten your nut, this part here isn't going to keep on turning while you do it. Right, now we've got this nice and tight and everything all looks flush and as it should. You want to get your wheel and chuck it back on. Once you've got your wheels on, you just get your lug nuts and just basically put them all on, but don't tighten them up straight away. Just put one on, give it a turn a couple of times, and then work on to the next one. Another quick tip, when you're putting your wheel back on, just make sure that the rim is flush with your rotor, because that's not flush and you tighten your wheel nuts up, there's going to be too much clearance between your mag wheel and the rotor, and your lug nuts are just going to end up getting loose and they'll fall off, and then your wheel's going to fall off one day when you're driving. So it's very important that this is flush before you tighten up your lug nuts. Now that you've got your lug nuts on loosely, before you jack it down, you just want to tighten them up. Doesn't matter if the wheel turns, it's only, this is only just to get them snug before we lower the wheel. When we lower the wheel, we can do them up nice and tight, so your wheel's not going to fall off. Right, once you've got them hand tight, what you want to do is get your jack and lower it down slowly. Ugh. When you lower it, just make sure there's nothing underneath your car, or anyone for that matter. You lower it down. Once you lower it down, take your jack out, and what you want to do now is tighten your lug nuts with your tool. Right, once you've tightened back up your lug nuts, for the final step, you want to open up your bonnet again. You want to get a brake fluid reservoir cap. Chuck that back on, it's nice and snug. Now what you want to do now is jump in your car. Depending if your car's push button or key, you have to put your foot on the brake. But when you put your foot on the brake, what's going to happen is it's going to put pressure on that piston. That was the thing I was telling you about when you push it back in. So you've got clearance, so the clamshell closes back up and you can put it back together again. So it feels pretty squishy initially till you push on a couple of times and it goes solid. What you want to do is start the car. Now when you feel it, it kind of goes soft intermittently, and it will feel soft a couple of times. But what you want to do is keep pushing it until you feel some pressure. Once you feel some pressure, you're pretty much good to go. At this point, you want to take it for a test drive around the block, just to wear it in. Just take off, brake slowly, start, take off again, brake slowly, start, so on. So I want to do it a couple of times just to make sure it's holding pressure. You can walk around the car, check around all your seals and everything, make sure you're not leaking any brake fluid around your wheels or around your brake fluid reservoir. If you don't see any of that, then congratulations, you've changed your brake pads. If you have any questions or comments or anything else you want to know, etc., changing your bulbs, brake, headlight bulbs, park light bulbs, rear bulbs, anything like that, drop a comment and I'll make a how-to video on it. Stay frosty guys, thanks for watching.